Yes. Welcome to the show that is pound for pound the most power packed punch in podcast media, where interesting conversations create a ripple effect of excellence that resonates in your personal, professional, and spiritual life. I'm here today with my boys, Bobby Clark and Justin Blair, no strangers to the show. They are really good friends of mine. They have a wealth of knowledge to share with you today. And I appreciate you guys being here. How are you today, real quick? Are you awake, Justin? It's early for you, bro. I know.
Nope, doing great. I'm usually up at this time anyway. So let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Awake,
right.
He's not woke. How about that?
Well, we talked. We haven't gotten to that yet. You don't know. We haven't changed.
That's right.
It's been a bit.
Right. The mystery.
Bro, he is jumping ahead. I told you he was fired up before we hit record. So just, you've been warned. But let's talk about this guy. We're doing a special election episode here in the hopes of getting it out to people, and there is so much to talk about, so I want to get right to it. But my hope is that, I've been thinking about it, man. I've been thinking about how we're going to do this show, what we're going to do. You can't plan this thing. I don't like to script things, and I know you guys don't either, but my hope is that we can really make an intelligent, persuasive case today. I think we're probably going to be talking mainly to Christians, right? I think that's kind of where we're going with this today, because there seems, believe it or not, there seems to be a lot of issues in the church, in the Christian community, and things may get passionate. I think they will, especially with that guy in the middle today. But Justin, you are our designated cooler head. All right, so feel free to keep Bobby and I within the guardrails if you can, or you can try. But
all right, that's a tall order. All right,
I understand. By the way, Justin is the host of the Just in This World podcast, and I will tell you guys about it at the end of the show as well. But I encourage everybody to go listen to it if you are, women listen to the show as well. But if you are a man seeking spiritual growth in the Lord, Justin does a really good job of just laying out the case in an intelligent way. And guys, you can go check it out. I've linked it on the show before. I'll probably link it again. So Justin will sync up and I'll get that stuff from you. So it's election season, guys. It is. It never fails. It never ceases to amaze me. The amount of craziness that is going on in the election cycle. A lot of it's manufactured, but it doesn't cease to amaze me how many people still fall for the game. You know what I mean? It's just absolutely amazing to me. It's as if people have forgotten how to think, or if they ever knew. And I kind of wanted to start with the North Carolina controversy, but I think that's going to kind of get weaved in, if you will, because there's so much to unpack there. And I want to talk about it. But first, let's talk about Christians and voting. All right, it does not cease to amaze me how many Christians are voting the way they're voting, or they're not voting at all. Bobby, what have you found in your conversations with people that you know, don't know, family members, strangers? I'm just really curious as to what you've encountered.
But I will say that the recent stats that have come out, and you kind of gotta take it with somewhat of a grain of salt. However, when they're not talking like 1 million, 2 million. They're talking 32 million Christians right now don't plan on voting this year. And that's staggering to me. I don't know, like I said, I don't know how truthful that is, although I've talked to a lot of people, my circle of influence, friends, family, and very small percentages of those people aren't voting, and shockingly, some are even voting for the other side just because they don't like the color of a hair, you know what I mean? So I would say what bothers me the most is that Christians feel that they are they need to vote for a savior. And Trump isn't a savior. He's not our God. He's not our Heavenly Father. He's none of those things. He's a sinful man just like you and I, 100% sinful. And the fact that you may not like one of his policies, and there's a couple policies I don't like, 100%. I disagree with a few of them. I'm okay with his banter. I mean, sometimes he probably goes a little too off the rail, but again, I'm not looking for a savior in a president. I'm looking for somebody who's going to uphold the Constitution that was implanted in the roots of our Heavenly Father. That's it. And then I'm going to pray for the cabinet that he hires, and then surrounds himself with those kind of people. And I'll just leave it at that for now.
All right. So, Justin, before I get to asking you what you've encountered, Bobby, why do you think people are still acting as if they're voting for the pastor in chief, bro? Why is there no distinction there? Why is there no separation? It seems like we have to put them on this pedestal of perfection that it seems to be a problem in the minds of so many people.
I will say this: I can't speak for everybody or even think for anybody other than myself. And just for a small moment, I actually had to pray, and I did feel some conviction because when Trump came out and at his first term he was anti-abortion across the board. Then he started loosening it up, and then he's like, it's based on these types of things, right? That he's okay with. And again, I had to really pray about it. I talked to my wife, and I'm like, if I vote for him, am I voting for more death? Obviously, a lot less death than we have in this current circumstances. Any Democrats killed millions and millions and millions, and it will continue to kill millions. So, obviously, it's going to be a lot less death under Trump in his values and what he thinks. However, I had to internalize that as a Christian man. Am I voting for him and then I'm voting for his belief system? The answer is no. I'm not. So I had to come to, I had to pray about it, and that's where I would encourage all Christians to pray about it. Seek. Don't make a decision based on anything other than what the Holy Spirit is leading you to do. And if the Holy Spirit says not to vote, which that's just between you and the Holy Spirit. I'm out of that. But I'll tell you, I came to the realization that I am going to continue to vote to save this democracy, to save this republic, to save this country, just like Jonah did reluctantly to the Ninevites. And what did they do? They all turned, right? They got a lot more time on their hands. So I think we have. I don't. No matter what, I still read the Word. And here's the other thing too. Again, I don't want to go on too far. My thought process is that if you're a Christian, you already know the end, right? So you're already probably making this assumption. Well, God's already in control, and it's gonna be just that way anyway. So I'm just gonna let it play out. Well, God is also, does he change his mind? No, but he does love a repentant heart, right? He does want to bring. The Bible says in the last days that all men will pour out their spirit, right? And we're in that. We're going to have to come to that. I just don't want the blood on my hands to not make a informed decision to do everything I can in our country, the last country standing, that we can actually pray, we can actually talk like we're talking right now without being censored. The fact that that's going to go away on November 5th if you don't vote, if you choose to opt out, those rights are gone. Your first, second, all the amendments, the Constitution's out the door. Everything is gone because you decided not to vote. And so here's the other thing. As a Christian, I can promise you right now, those 32 million, I would like to do a poll on those 32 million, that how many of those people got a vaccine? You know what I'm saying? How many of those people fell on the face of fear? And yet you're not voting for whatever, and yet you think when it's really bad as a Christian that you're going to die a martyr? Do you think you would really do that? Would you take your life for Christ? Would you bear your life for Christ? I don't think so. Like, really, I don't think so. So I know we're getting a little bit deep off the rails, but I just think that Christians need to wake up. Y'all need to shake up, wake up, and pray up, and let's vote for our democracy. Vote for the Constitution.
Yeah, man. So first of all, don't worry about it. We've got time. Number one, that's why Justin got up so early. But I think, yeah, bro, this whole God's in control complacency syndrome that so many people have is a problem, and I think we're going to get into it, man. But don't worry about going off the rails, man. Justin, like I said, he is our cooler head, and will shift you back to the middle if he has to. But Justin, what's been your experience, bro? Because you live, and we can get into the differences, but you live up in the Pacific Northwest where no one has any sense,
hey,
except for you and your circle. You and your circle. But what have you found when talking to people, man? What's been your experience?
Well, I actually spend a lot of time talking with everybody, Christians or non-Christians. It doesn't matter to me. I won't hold it against anybody, especially when it comes to this conversation, because I found that most people are just not willing to have the conversation, period. They're too concerned with opinion. They're too concerned with saying the wrong thing, which is definitely training and conditioning from the last several years. Beyond that, for Christians in general, in my climate up here in the Pacific Northwest, most of it's because they just don't feel like their vote matters. They don't feel like it counts. So why vote anyway if my state's already naturally going to be blue? What people don't realize is that Washington State, for instance, could actually go red in several areas in this upcoming election. Not just less likely from a presidential standpoint, but our governor race, our attorney general is up. We have several open seats that very likely could lean red and go red for this upcoming election. So when you sit back and you go, I'm not going to vote because my vote doesn't count, it's just laziness. As Christians that aren't going to vote, you're just being lazy, which God's got some opinions about lazy people. If you're not going to be involved in what's going on around you, you can't complain about what happens around you. You just can't. There's no justification for that other than realizing that maybe in the past you were lazy and made a mistake, and now you gotta wake up. But the question comes down to when are you going to wake up? Are you going to wake up now? Or are you going to wake up a couple of years ago? Was the pandemic not a wake up call for you? How about let's go back further than that? Really, I mean, there are so many contentions around voting for Donald Trump, but I'm not really convinced that any of them hold any water when anybody actually starts talking about it. Their quips, their quick sayings, their headlines, their taglines that we want to apply to a person. And the problem is when we start applying identity politics to our whole political structure, we lose sight of what actually matters. We don't vote the party anymore. We start voting the people as though, like Bobby said, they're our savior. I am voting my savior in this election. I'm voting for Jesus in this election. I am voting for truth in this election. And I absolutely voting for Donald Trump in this case for President of the United States. I absolutely believe that to my core. Trump's not the savior here. Absolutely not. But the party, if you look at the party and what matters to the Democratic Party right now versus what happens and matters to the Conservative Party right now, the Republican Party, you can't go, oh, I'm going to vote my conscience here and I'm going to vote Democratic. You can't do that. You cannot look at the values. You cannot look at what they're campaigning on, what they're running on, and what they stand for and go, oh, sure. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, you could do that. I remember having very real conversations with my parents growing up about how important it is to look at what a candidate stands for and not just blanket vote a party, because there's times when perhaps your knee-jerk reaction is not the right candidate for whatever job it is that you're voting for. I remember those conversations. Unfortunately, those conversations are fewer and far between because now we're so wrapped up in, oh, it's red versus blue, it's left versus right, it's divided. We are a divided nation beyond belief, but we're also trained not to talk about these things. So as far as what I'm seeing here, we've got a lot of people that are just not willing to talk about the conversation because they're so afraid of what somebody might think. So my favorite thing to do is just to ask, and it's just like anything else. Just, hey, like, what do you think about this current election cycle? And just ask. And it's fascinating to me how many people go, I don't actually really know what's going on. I don't really know what I think about what's going on, and I don't really know how to think about what's going on. Beautiful. Let's have a conversation, not because what I think is correct necessarily, but because that is a flicker of life in somebody who is actually thinking about something. And you know what? If you're willing to stop and have the conversation with them, they're probably going to go on and have the conversation with somebody else as well, because somebody showed them the decency to not just judge them or jump all over them because of their opinion, and actually take a moment and go, well, tell me more about that. Tell me more about why you think that that's what, say, Trump thinks about that, or that's what Harris thinks about that, or that's what the party thinks about that. And I think it's important just to be willing to take a moment, take a deep breath, and recognize the fact that we've all been lied to for years. We've all been lied to about several things for years, and we're all being lied to right now. I'm not voting for, like I said, the savior of the United States. I'm not. It's not where we're at. I'm voting for the United States of America. I am voting for the Constitution. I'm voting for what this country is built on, and that is an important thing to recognize. If you are voting left on this election, especially at your presidential level, you are voting for a country that we do not want to exist. But it will if we don't take seriously this election.
Yeah, it would be nice to know what Harris thinks, or if she thinks, but we can't get any information out of her.
You can't get any information out of her currently, but you can get information out of her historically, right?
Exactly.
This is the problem. Like I think you hit the nail on the head with it'd be nice to know what to think. I think that's also a lie that we're grabbing onto left and right. Oh, we don't really know we know exactly what her policies are. We know what her upbringing is. We know what she thinks. Historically, it's on record. There's tweets. I guess you can still call them that, right, on X. But there's tweets. There's clips. There's recordings. She's in interviews. She has a record. She absolutely has a record, and her record speaks for itself. Not just the last few years, but her entire record. She's made decisions. She stood for things. She has literally spoken out. She's spoken out about removing free speech, making this what we're doing right now illegal.
Yep.
Because it might hurt somebody, because it might make somebody think about something a little bit differently than how she or the party, we'll call it, wants. I mean, it's 1984, right here in front of your face. But no, we'll go, oh, we don't really know her policy. You're right, and I think that she absolutely knows her policies. She just knows that if she actually spoke them out loud, currently in this current climate, in this current time, that there's no way the American people would vote for her. She would lose the entire Democratic Party as far as people goes, but not as far as what they want, as far as what that party is currently pushing for when it comes to the power grab, when it comes to what their goals are overall.
Yeah, even Democrats wouldn't vote for her. The only Democrats that would vote for her are in Seattle. So
they didn't vote for her in the beginning, so it didn't matter. She has 0 votes.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. When she ran for president in the primary, it was very evident, even back then when things weren't as bad, that nobody wanted her. And one thing that's amazing to me, and Justin, I want to ask you I want to see if you can answer this for me, because you talk to people up there who literally are just, it's as if CNN comes out of their mouth when you ask them for a reason. But like, it's amazing how those same people, and yeah, I'm speaking to you, Christians, non-Christians alike, you people will hold Trump accountable for the dumbest little things in his past, or the things that he's actually openly admitted to, with honesty, for the love of God. They will hold him accountable for every little thing. But Justin, you just spoke about her record, Kamala's record, that they will just choose to ignore that. They will not hold her accountable, or even go find her record. So why do you think that is?
Well, a few reasons. It's easier. It's easier. It's easier just to choose to identify with what is going to be the path of least resistance. We are bombarded with information and headlines. I actually get different news up here than you guys do where you live. I am 100% positive of that. Not just from like local there's outlets, but just literally just mass filtering, because I would bet that I get more advertisements. You probably get them too, but I probably get more advertisements in my YouTube streaming feed for Democratic policies and candidates than you guys do. In fact, every single time I get them, I actually report them as misinformation. So that's fun. Side note, little tip for you: report them. Don't just skip over them. And they have to deal with it. So again, total side note. As far as people don't. I don't want to say that people don't want to think. People don't have a lot of time to really stop and go, what do I actually think here? Or we're trying to keep up. We're trying to keep up with inflation. We're trying to keep up with the economy is going downhill as far as everything goes. We're trying to keep up with just getting to work and paying the bills and keeping up with life to an extent. We're also totally bought into this idea of entertainment. We want to entertain ourselves to death. We spend all of this time that we think that we're so busy. I guess I gotta watch the game. I gotta keep up with the show. I gotta check my fantasy league and all this. And I'm not, again, if you've heard my show, you know that I'm not anti those things. What I am is, hey, make sure that these things don't have control over your life and your time and your capacities. When it comes to this conversation, though, people are so bought into this party that has helped you so much in your life, and it becomes this odd level of worship that you literally worship your Republican Party or your Democrat Party. And the ironic thing about all of that is that we'll be angry about somebody else for just having a blanket. Oh, I'm voting for Trump just because. I am. I'm like, I actually pressed on that too. Oh, what is it about Trump that's got your vote? Because I think it's important for us as well to not just be like, oh, it's just make America great again. Okay, like absolutely. Again, a tagline that I can get behind, sure, but why? Why is it? Because I think people are looking for conversation about this, and they're looking to be invited into that conversation. And for me to just walk around and be like, oh yeah, I just am, just because I like him better. That's really not any better answer than somebody going, I'm voting for Harris because I like her better. It isn't. But we'll get angry with somebody who goes, well, I'm voting for Harris because I live in Seattle. Okay, why? Because she most identifies with my beliefs. Oh, which beliefs?
What are they?
And it's not to pick on Harris, actually, in that case. It's actually to kind of, you as an individual that's engaged with me right now, what is it that's important to you? Because I'm curious, because they seem to be running, and it came up a little bit earlier, but like the abortion thing, for instance. It came up earlier, and we'll probably talk about it again, because that seems to be this most important thing for the entire nation if you listen to the advertising and the marketing of it. And it is a serious thing, in my opinion, from my perspective, it is. But they'll try and stick that to, Trump's going to ban abortion across the whole nation, when he has actually said quite the opposite, and he did the most politician thing that you could do. And instead of dealing with it in his last term, he just moved it back to the states, so the states could deal with it. I mean, how do you win in a conversation like this, where this is made to be one of the most divisive conversations that we can possibly have, is this oxymoron that we call reproductive freedom. And it's like, well, actually, that's not reproductive at all. The reproductive was the part that got you to that conversation where now you're thinking about having an abortion. That's where you exercised your reproductive freedom. Welcome to the free love movement and the spike. And anyway, well, I'll get off that tangent real quick. But just to
I'm gonna be your guardrail here, bro.
just to bring us to the question that you asked, it's you've got to be willing to ask the questions and have those conversations. That's what I have found, and you've got to be willing to step immediately into the discomfort of it, because it is like a polarizing wall. This whole politically correct nonsense, where if you're not willing to go ahead and step into that and have some reason besides, I can't think of any. I have a lot of reasons, so I can't really think of any like blanket dumb reasons to vote for Trump, other than I just don't like Harris. Like it's just not good enough for productive conversation. And if you have any sort of tangible, fact-based opinion, you should enter into that conversation, because you will be welcomed into that conversation, and that invites the other person to actually engage beyond the surface level of the, I've just always voted Democrat. Okay,
Right.
like I have not just always voted Republican, but I'm voting for Trump this election, so that doesn't matter what we've always voted or what we might always vote. I voted for Trump in this last, the 2020 election. I didn't vote for him in 2016. I didn't vote for Hillary either, but that was when I was like, what is going on, right? And we can go back to that later, because I do think that it's important to recognize that a lot of the things that they're throwing against Trump and Vance and the Republican Party currently about 2020 and about January 6th and about things that were said or things that might have been sort of hinted and said, all of those things were said in 2016 when Hillary lost the election. And it's important
100%.
to recognize that history, the age of information, makes us forget things way too quickly. 2016 was not that long ago, and yet here we are. We're going to get caught in this back and forth conversation about a bunch of garbage that matters, but it matters that you actually sift through it and look at the facts.
Yeah, bro, there's a lot to unpack there. So I'm going to interject something really quickly. Sorry, it's not going to be nice, but if you, at this point, if you don't have the details, if you don't have the facts about the whole January 6th thing, shut up. Just shut up. Don't even get into the conversation. Shut your mouth. I'm sorry. Just those people are sitting there rotting in jail for something that most of us have probably done in some way or form, shape or form in our own lives. Don't even talk to me about that. Go get factually acclimated and then come back and have a conversation. And then we'll probably agree. But the one thing I found, bro, is that if you, like, you're right. You ask questions because you get, and I'm sorry, this is not to make fun of people, but all you got to do is ask questions. You get 3-4 questions in, bro, they're up against the wall. They got nothing, okay? Especially people who who vote Democrat most of the time, right? But I think the one thing that you do, Justin, very well that I think I've gotten better at doing, I'm trying, is, once they hit that wall, that's when more questions come in, right? They hit that wall, and it's up to it's up to us at that point to show a little grace, be nice, don't hit them over the head with the stupid book, It's like, and say, well, did you know questions come in, and that's when the wheels start turning, because at that point, like you said, bro, we did a podcast on this, on effective communication, on impactful communication. It's coming out soon. People need to listen to that. But that's how you get people to think, because if you're in the conversation 3-4 questions in and beyond, they clearly subconsciously have enough trust in you to keep listening, right? That means you got them. It doesn't mean you're going to convert them. It just means you got them. And all you want to do is get them to think for themselves a little bit for the first time, probably in a long time, right?
Right. And so I won't go on a tangent here, right? Like you said, the episode's coming out, but we will, I'm going to make a couple of references to some people that I do enjoy their conversations, but too quickly we'll take the YouTube bait and the whatever else media you watch of different debates of conservatives versus liberals and the like, and Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and other people that will go up to the debate stage and have these conversations, Candace Owens, for instance, and we assume that that's what day-to-day conversation is like on these things, and it just isn't. It's not about, I'm going to prove that I'm right and you're not, or I'm going to make you look dumb in front of a bunch of people, which often happens when we see those clips and those highlights, right? It's just so not about that, and you hit it. When you get to a point where somebody's like actually going, I'm kind of up against a wall here and I don't really know where to go from here, the temptation is to pounce and go, see, I told you, I'm right, you're wrong, get to my side. And that's just not helpful, not productive, not gracious, to your point there. And that's an important time to go and recognize that, okay, here we are, this is now where this conversation happens. Everything that you had leading to that was actually building rapport and building a relationship with somebody and building a little bit of trust with somebody that allows you to actually engage in that productive conversation and then move forward. And you have to be willing to reciprocate when they ask questions to you and actually give thoughtful responses.
Yeah, so Bobby, I'm going to go to you next on the abortion thing, but I want to share something with you guys real quick because it's the same thing. I work in insurance in Florida, and I have a lot of conversations with a lot of different people from a lot of different places. They don't all live in Florida. A lot of them live in New York and Connecticut and wherever else. Northeasterners, the snowbirds, and I just find it very comical when I'm having the conversation, and clearly they trust me enough to rant because I build that trust very quickly. But then they'll go off on DeSantis as if, oh, I wish DeSantis would do something about the insurance here and this and that and the other, and they start ranting on DeSantis as if he could do something. So what I usually do is I take that opportunity because they're clearly uninformed. They clearly don't understand simple economics, and so I take that opportunity to say to them, I said, man, I hear what you're saying. I really do. I said, but like, I've thought about this too, and I've thought about it. I'm like, well, what's DeSantis really going to do? If he says to these insurance companies here, which there aren't a whole lot of them, okay, in the grand scheme of things, if he says to them, he tries to force them into this box, they have to do this, they have to do that, they got to pay for this, they can't do this. If he does that to these insurance companies, what do you think they're going to do? And I said, they're probably going to leave the state and say, we don't have to put up with this crap and go somewhere else. And I said, unfortunately, if that happens, man, we have less options for insurance, and which means higher prices. Take them back to Economics 101. And you know what? They always agree. They shut their mouths, and then we move on to talking about insurance, because it's just not that simple. I'm sorry, it's just not. DeSantis does a heck of a lot of great things here, man. I don't care what anybody says. I do not care. Every time I turn around, the man is on top of things. He is, with this last hurricane, he is just on it, bro. So much so that he's sending people to North Carolina to help because the damn federal government won't do anything on purpose. I digress. We'll go into that in a little bit. But Bobby, I gotta ask you, man, because I know this is kind of big for you. I think the whole abortion thing is a smokescreen. I'm sorry. Is it important? Yes, absolutely, 100%. Very important. Should it be your singular focus on how to vote? I don't think so. My personal opinion. But it's a smokescreen to get mostly women to vote on emotion. Okay? Now, whether you want that right or think you should have it or whatever, that's a heart issue between XYZ woman and God. Okay? But that's what it's designed to do. It is a purposeful tactic used election after election after election after election, right? To get women to vote on emotion. All right, bro. Bobby, what are your thoughts on that, man? How do you look at that?
I can't speak for women, obviously, although I could identify as one if I wanted to, but I don't. Oops, too soon. My bad.
You'd be a pretty, very, very sexy bearded woman, man.
I think so too. Listen. We all know there's been the same tactics every cycle, every term.
Every cycle, man.
It has been the same tactics every time, and it's just been this combativeness. Both sides. One wants to take your rights away. One wants to suppress your rights, and it's almost comical. But see, I think though, common sense. We're talking about like how you are getting your information and where you're getting it from and how you're having these conversations, and a lot of times, we all know the media is bought and paid for. We all know that across the board. There's only a few conservative outlets that actually speak the truth, and even then, you've got to you should always question, anyways. Always question. However, I don't vote based on what channel I watch or anything like that. I vote based on what is in my checking account, if I have a stable job, if I can be able to pay for food for my family, if I have the ability to just go out and speak and pray in public or talk, and just, that's how I vote, right? And that's, I think, the difference between how we are getting our information and how we are living our daily lives. And I think a lot of people are living their lives as if they're just puppets, and they're so used to being so just very like what Justin said, 1984, like this is what I do. This is what I do. I vote Democrat because these are the policies that come my way, and this is the right thing to do. But you know, people are starting to wake up, and even like the black men, they're done. They're waking up. Good for them. Obviously, there's still people, and if you think about it, and I've watched a lot of interviews, and to what Justin was saying, people are asked questions. Why I'm voting? Who are you voting for? I'm voting for Kamala. Why? Tell me some policies that she brings, and they can't. The only thing that they say is that either that she protects my rights, and or she's black and she's a woman. That's it, or whatever she is. I'm not sure what she is. I don't know that she does, but we all know the truth. Doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that that is the most ridiculous thing. But that is such a small percentages. But that's how the media works. It makes it seem so big. And there's so many scare tactics, which is why these 32 million Christians that aren't voting, and again, I don't know how truth all that is, but we need every single Christian to stand up, because here's the thing. If you're not going to be bold for democracy, bold for the Constitution, you're not going to be bold for Christ. You're just not. Those are the same people who are timid, that don't want to go in public and talk about the gospel. Those are the same people. And you think all of a sudden, once the communism comes in, that you're going to be now all of a sudden bold? No, y'all, it's not going to happen. Yeah, I'm not buying it.
I watched one of those videos yesterday, and it was amazing that this girl was interviewing people, just like you said. Why? Who are you voting for? And then they say it, because everybody's proud to say who they're voting for real quick. And then the next question is why, and it was very easy and quick to see the pattern that clearly white liberals were voting for Kamala, and every black person that this girl interviewed was voting for Trump, male or female.
Yeah.
Right? And they had policy reasons, right? Black people had policy reasons for their vote for Trump, and the other side was just, as if the person interviewing them should know. Like, that reminds me of how Seattle is. It's like people would just spout out things assuming that you're voting Democrat. You know what I mean? I remember those days. But one guy, he said that the reason he's voting for Kamala is because she's brought joy to the world. Have you ever heard such an asinine answer in your life? I can't do it. But I'm just saying, there's a stark contrast in people who are voting for Trump. Most people can tell you why, can give you at least a couple of reasons why. The other side, not so much. So,
well, I had to interject there, because I think she does bring joy to the world. It's for me a comic relief every time she speaks. It's a comic relief every time she laughs. So it is funny, and it does bring joy to me, because it keeps me like going, okay, I'm not crazy. Like I'm not crazy. I'm not this I'm not in a hole just voting for my little Trumpy. I'm not. This lady is like, she's hilarious. She brings joy to my heart, because she does confirm that she's a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I don't want it for the next 4 years, bro. I'm sorry, I can't.
No.
It ain't gonna be funny after very long.
No, that's true.
That's why they kept her secret for the last few.
Of course.
Because if she was in the public eye like she's been, there's no way. And that guy.
Can we talk?
That guy that was, what do you say? She brought joy. Was he white and overweight?
Yes. Yes. How did you know?
Oh, just lucky guess.
Yeah.
Seriously, you didn't see the video? Seriously? You didn't see the video I'm talking about?
I don't think so.
Okay, because that's crazy. No. But yes, he was white and very overweight.
just a lucky guess.
Oh my gosh. So let's talk about this before we move into why Christians don't vote. Let's get into that, because I want people to get some heart checks, I hope. Let's talk. That's the thing, bro. You just said it. Like, the Democrat side, they are running yet another basement campaign. Okay, they're running another basement campaign, like they did with Joe. Now, at least with Joe, they had the excuse, in my opinion, not a great one, of COVID. You know, that we can't. They had the circles on the gym floor with 12 people there. Because that's half of them are reporters, and that's all they could get. Where Trump is filling stadiums and blocks outside of stadiums, running. What does that? I mean, if you are a Democrat and you're voting Democrat and you still have it in your mind you're going to vote Democrat, can you stop and think about it for a second? What does that say about who you vote for? What does that say? Like, you are. Well, first, if you haven't recognized it yet, I'm telling you, just look at it. It's another basement campaign. How many interviews has she done? Very, very, very few. Like, she heard online that people don't like she's not giving interviews, so now she did a couple with a basketball player of all people who.
And then an edited version of CBS, and they're in major trouble right now. Major.
Right. So these scripted interviews, softball questions, and very, very, very few interviews. Contrast that with Trump, who is literally going on every podcast he can get on, right? And going and not afraid to speak to media, not afraid to go on 60 Minutes and blah blah and everywhere else. So what? Stop. I just want, and again, we'll move on for a second after this. But what does that say about the people you vote for and what they think about you? They don't think enough of you to fully put their candidates out there transparently so that you can really get a better understanding of who they are and what they want to do in office, which will directly affect your life. What does it say? Have you thought about that? Right? You can say Trump is bombastic and talks too much all you want, but at least he's out there talking. Right? So, Justin, do you have anything to add to that, bro? It looks like you got the wheels turning.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I won't add too much. I think that you're questioning there. You're posing the question. I think that's enough. I think you got to stop and I think I think historically we ought to go back and kind of revisit all of the elections for the last. I mean, let's go back to JFK if you really want to get into it and just kind of question and kind of wonder what has been happening, because a lot of what we're wrestling with right now, it took a major leap forward in the last few years because of COVID and because of the administrations. But we've been, if you just look back in history, hindsight's 20/20, right? You can kind of start to see, this is when that started to shift. This is when these things started to shift. And then we'll act like we're super surprised now, because we kind of are. We're kind of surprised that this is what we're talking about. This is what we're dealing with. The Biden, I mean, we should have removed him years ago. He never should have been the candidate. Mentally fit. He was barely mentally fit when he was voted in, and it's only gotten worse. But we've watched that, we've witnessed that, and we've laughed at it, and we've pointed at it, and comedians have made quite the mockery of the president of the United States, as has the rest of the world. I mean, I wonder how many people would answer the question correctly, who's the current sitting president of the United States of America at this point, because of the way that they put Harris in as the candidate anyway. It all seems scripted on that side of the equation entirely and planned, and yet I get weird looks when I question and I talk about how I'm upset that Harris is the candidate for that party. It's not how it is supposed to be. She was not voted by anybody. That's right. And that I'm voting for the conservative side of the aisle in this election 100%. But as somebody who's voting that direction, I'm concerned with the fact that she is the candidate. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't jive. It doesn't fit with how any of our policies are and how any of our procedures are. And she was not chosen by the people.
That's right.
When you ask that of anybody who's just blindly choosing to vote for her and Walz of all people, I mean, we could talk about him too. People stop and they think about that, and if you get somebody to take a moment and go, oh, wait a second, that's right, that's kind of that's kind of weird. We have that's not like you start getting the gears turning there, and suddenly you got yourself a whole new conversation. But we're not voting. We're not. Well, I don't want to make this too much about people. We're not voting for a person in this election. We just aren't. We just aren't. We're voting for the future of this nation. And as a father of young children, baby 3 is going to be here in about 6 to 7 weeks. Like, I am thinking about my kids. I'm thinking about my grandkids. I'm thinking about as long as this nation has stood, I would like it to continue to stand. And so that's what this comes down to. And that's why this conversation we're having today is so important. And I hope that every listener, Christian or not, regardless of your persuasion of faith, that matters to me wholly. It does. But what also matters in this moment is that you're going to stop and actually think about how important your vote actually is, and that you're going to utilize that and actually think about what it is that you're voting for.
Yeah, and the thing is, you got to realize if you're on the left, if you're on the Democrat side of things, you didn't get to vote for the candidate. As Justin just said, you did not get to choose your candidate in a primary like you normally would. I don't know if you've realized that yet or not, okay? But newsflash, that's what happened. They installed her for you, and they said, damn your vote. We don't care who you want, right? Same thing happened to Tulsi Gabbard, right? When she was actually running last time. An actual sensible candidate that I would actually vote for, even though she used to be a Democrat, right? I don't agree with her on everything, but she's a patriot. She serves in our military. She's all those things. But, I mean, they made sure to nudge her out. They made sure of it. But it got even worse this time. There was no primary, you guys. That's what normally happens in a presidential election on both sides. You have a primary. Trump handily won his primary, okay? But Kamala was installed. So again, if you can just stop for a second while you're listening to this, stop. What does it say about the people you vote for, okay, over and over again, that they don't think enough of you to give you the opportunity to vote for who you want to run? What does that say?
The thing is, though, most people are sheep, right? They're just, and a lot they don't care. It doesn't matter. Well, we're not talking about those people, because those people are, you can't fix stupid, period, and you never will be. I think the thing about it is that the people who actually have a couple brain cells left in that brain of theirs should be asking those questions. And I know that's what you're posing those questions to. However, the bad thing that I think the Democrats are doing right now is they're letting her speak a little bit too much towards the end. I would have kept her in the basement along with Biden. She is losing this election so fast right now. However, that's polling. That's even like legacy media polling. However, y'all, please be very aware that they always, like, listen, these people are evil. They're very, very, what they're really good at. We all know that is they're very good on the defense, and they're awesome on the offense. They already have a plan. They already have an exit strategy. They have a plan. So guess what? What do you think the next plan is? Illegal votes. And it will be counted. And there are millions of them, and they can just move them around anywhere, because guess what? When they started coming in, they started tagging them, and they got them all moved around. So they were going to be able to place. These are placeholders. Yeah. And that's when this is the scary part. This is why those 32 million Christians, you need to step up so you make it too big to rig. You cannot, you can combat all of that. That's why your vote, every single vote, does count, because you're going to save this country.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous to think, and I that's the part that I don't understand how, and I'm even seeing some of the conservative media, just, they mention it here and there, but I'm telling you what, this is going to be the biggest scam of our lifetime, and we'll never get it back. This is it. Yeah. This is the plan. It's been the plan from the beginning, because no one in their right mind ever, I don't care if you're a Democratic left wacko job, thinks that open borders is the right thing to do. to protect even your own family, right? It's not even like you can't even, it's not plausible, right? So the fact that they are allowing that for that short next 3.5 years, 4 years, I mean, just think about that alone. That alone. Millions of people, and then over 400,000 of them are convicted rapists, murderers. Like it's disgusting. But the fact of the matter is they don't care about anything other than the votes, because once they can get there, it'll become Mexico 2.0 or Venezuela 2.0. And Venezuela's, their crime rate has actually got better because they put them all in our country.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, man. But I feel like the show is trying to teach people how to think today. I don't know, but it's the thing is people don't understand what you're talking about, man. They don't understand until you do what Justin said and ask them the questions, right? If you are voting Democrat and you think that having millions of people who don't belong here is okay and acceptable to you, it's okay until the people you voted for put the policy out there that says you must take illegal immigrants into your home by law. Okay? Now you think that's hyperbole? You think it's already been talked about, man. Even a year or two ago, people on the left in certain jurisdictions have talked about that. Okay? So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they will require that of you at some point. And then when you have strangers in your house who you have no idea who they are, you don't know if they've raped people, you don't know if they murdered people, you don't know anything about them, sleeping next door in the room next to your kids, I guess you can, look back on who you voted for and sleep in that bed. I don't know, man. But here's the thing.
Problem. We can't look back. We can't look back. We got to stop looking back, because it's 3.5 years of pure disgust. No more.
I know, but yeah,
and no more even like taking chances anymore. This isn't a chance. This isn't a throw it up and check. This is it. This is the most serious election of our lifetime, and I think this is it forever. And not because Trump. It has nothing to do with Trump. Trump is just he's a spokesperson for all of us, even though he's a billionaire. But at the end of the day, he doesn't have to do this. He's not that narcissistic that he thinks he needs to do this. This has nothing to do with that. My man took a bullet. I mean, no, none of that has to go. That's just ignorance.
Right.
This is to save our country and our family and our grandkids, what Justin said, our children. This is to save that.
I mean, I don't think people realize what would be coming. You know what I'm saying? I don't think they realize what would be coming. If they did, they would probably vote differently. Yeah. They'd probably have the internal honesty and fortitude to vote for Trump, even if they don't like it, even if they don't like doing it, because of what it means, because of what voting for the other side means. I just don't think people are connecting those dots, Bobby. I really don't. When you say Venezuela and you make those references, most people don't know what you're talking about. That's one of the problems, and that's a different show. But like, let's shift back to focusing on the Christians, man, because we have to. If they engage, then we win. Okay, I think that's the truth. If they engage and in prayer seek who they should vote for, if they're conflicted, then I think we win. Yeah. Because the truth is, my personal opinion, and I want, Justin, your opinion on this real quick. Not quick, we have time. But I believe that it is very, very obvious to see that God's hand is on Trump, man. I really, really do. I'm not one of those people who will arrogantly say Trump's got the win in the bag, blah, 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 no matter what the polling says. I also know that the other side will try to steal the election. They will. In whatever way that we know about or don't know about, they will. But I really believe that God has his hand on Trump, that he is protecting him, and I think it is very, very, very obvious to see. And if you are a follower of Christ and you have not come to that realization yet, then you really need to seek your own heart and wake the heck up. You really need to see it. Assassination attempt after assassination attempt, all the trials that he's coming away unscathed. Mm-hmm. I mean, am I wrong in that, Justin? What do you think, bro?
I don't. I don't disagree. I don't.
Yeah.
I guess I don't give as much credit to it as I think a lot of other people would like to. I think, and I'm not saying that God does not have His hand on Trump. What I am going to say is that we are a fallen people, and have been for a really, really long time. Let's go back to the garden. Okay, really long time. And he is a fallen man, like any of us. There's nothing abnormal or outside the realm of a normal human for him. And I know it's not what you're saying, but I think it's important to recognize that when we start to go down this path of, I think God's got His hand on Trump. I think it's too easy to kind of short circuit the conversation here and go back to making it about a figurehead or him, and it isn't about him. And what I've actually really enjoyed with all of these long form interviews that he's been doing, and I've listened to both his interviews and Harris's, and I think it's an important thing, because I don't just want to just go, oh, he's talking to somebody else, who is it? And he's talked to some people who are not naturally, right side of the aisle people, and been on some shows that you're like, man, who told you to go on that show of all things, and had lengthy conversations. What I have seen and what I have heard from him is a man who's grateful for this nation, understands the importance of this country, has seen it legacy-wise in his family. People want to go, oh, silver spoon, yeah, sure. His dad was successful. Yeah, it's great, but he's also been successful, and he's failed, and he's been successful, and he's got a good track record with building back up after failure. He's also been attacked ruthlessly by all institutions. All institutions have gone after him, and why is that? Well, had he stayed out of politics, had he stayed out of the race, had he not stepped forward for the values of this nation, he wouldn't be. And so it's important to recognize what's going on there. I do think there is definitely a good versus evil battle going on here. What I don't want to do is lose sight of the fact that if you are, as a Christian, concerned or questioning what you should be voting for, then you may need to open up the Bible and read it. Because you can't look at the values of these parties and choose the blue side of the aisle in this case as a Christian. Oh, I could just never vote for Trump because of this, that, and the other thing. Okay, great. If that's going to be your justification for not voting for Trump, you should probably just go find a new country to live in, because you don't belong here. You just don't. And you don't know who Jesus is, and you don't know the God of the Bible, and you should that's your reflection point. And I know that is aggressive to come across the bow with, but it's serious. You cannot look. You just can't. Like, if you are not looking, if that is your justification for either not voting or voting for Harris and Walz in this election as president of this country, you're not. You're just not looking. You're not paying attention. You're being lazy. You're choosing a scapegoat reasoning, and I would question your faith. And oh, that's so judgmental. No, it's looking at the facts. It's absolutely the facts. I'm not sitting here going, I'm voting Trump because God's hand is on him. I'm not saying it. And I think that if you're conflicted about this, and I do not think that the Holy Spirit's going to guide you to vote for Harris and Walz in this election. I don't.
Right.
If that's what you're feeling, and that's what the prompting is, and you're going to make an emotional decision based on feeling, you're a coward. And you're not thinking this through, and you're not actually paying attention to what is going on. And yeah, it is urgent, and it is important, and it is severely important. But you know what? Christians have also taken a long time to wake up to the fact that this world is against you. You go, I can just get along and give a little bit and give a little bit and give a little bit. It's phrased in several ways, but it is a slow play to get to the point that we are today, where we have children getting removed from the rightful custody of parents that actually care about their upbringing, and they're getting moved to, say, a state like California, and being medically castrated and altered because we are edifying gender dysphoria and making it the way to solve gender dysphoria is just to play into it, like that's or even to manipulate it altogether to do what? To get attention, and I'm not downplaying the fact that kids are struggling with this. Kids are struggling with this because we've made them to struggle with this. Among several things, we get lost in this immigration conversation as though this country's not built on immigration. It's not that Republicans are against immigration or immigrants. In fact, I have several friends that are first-generation immigrants because I like to meet new people. And you know what? First-generation immigrants, the immigrants are naturally, and like current ones, like my family immigrated here too, believe it or not. Oh, yeah, weird. But talk about hardworking people. And the big, and in the most cases, there's more millionaires out of first-generation immigrant people than there are out of Americans that have lived here, that have adopted their immigration status because they were born in this country. Take a step back and think about that. We're not anti-immigration. Trump is not anti-immigration. If you are an open border sort of a person and you like what's happened in the last few years, then leave your front door unlocked.
Right.
Better yet, just take it off the hinges altogether.
Yep.
Like, why would you want a barrier to your door anyway? Quick note on this that I thought about when this was brought up a minute ago. We call them NIMBYs, not in my backyard, because we have this homelessness issue that we also want to pretend like doesn't exist, and we have this drug crisis that we want to pretend like doesn't exist, and we want to pretend like it's not all connected, but. Nevertheless, here in the Seattle area, we had some legislation that was trying to get pushed to put tiny homes in people's yards. Why? Because people need a place to live. And there's all these people like, oh, this is a great idea. We need housing. We need places for people. We have these spots. We'll subsidize it. We'll pay you to take this tiny home into your front yard, and you can have somebody live in it. And
while forcing you at the same time.
See, we talked about this a second ago. Yeah.
And then, wait a second. That wasn't accepted by the people who were all for it, because when it came down to it, and this is going to happen in your neighborhood. Oh, no, not in my backyard.
Oh.
Somebody else's backyard, that's fine, but not in my backyard. So that's where the phrase NIMBY comes from, because we'll get all wrapped up in these emotional, social problems. And this is another problem with looking at the left versus the right. We'll go, all of the social justice issues, all of those are on the left side of the aisle, and I care about those things, so I'm going to vote for that candidate because those things matter. And fiscally responsible things like that does matter to me, but not as much as like the social justice thing. And yet we'll look at all of the ways that we've handled these social justice, if you're watching, I air quoted that, these social justice issues. We'll look at all of the ways that we've been handling over the years, and every problem just keeps getting worse. Why is that? Because we're not actually handling the issue. We're just enabling it. We're just fostering the growth of those issues and making them worse. Why? Because a dependable, weak people is easy to control, and that's what they're after. They're after control. They're after total control, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and it will continue to do so. And that's what we've been watching for generations, not just the last couple of years, but generations.
So so the good people of Seattle voted it down, huh? Not to have a little tiny house in their yard.
Yeah, not to allow the requirement of that. No, great idea for another neighborhood, but not my own. Yep.
What were the numbers?
I live in the outskirts of Seattle. Yeah. I don't even think it made it to vote. I think it was crushed down. Now, I don't.
Wow.
It was not an election that I voted in or participated in because, again, I live in the suburbs and I live away from the city. But nevertheless, that was what was being argued about and talked about. This is a possible solution to homelessness. Jeez. And you give somebody some place to live and they're no longer homeless, but that's still not a thriving life at all. But I digress. I hopped on the soapbox there for a minute, but
no, it's okay.
It is incredibly important that we actually wake up to this, because it's not It isn't about a candidate. It's not about a person. And you asked the question, and I think that it's a good question. And I'm not saying that God's hand is not on Trump. I just don't think that we need to give so much credit to that as some are trying to do, because we'll make that our justification, our reasoning. Oh, why are you voting for Trump? Oh, well, because it's obvious that, I mean, God's hand is on him, and I'm with God. It's like, okay, like, that's lovely in the right context in a conversation. Where I live, that's not going to bring on any productive conversation with the majority of people that I meet. With the majority of people that I meet, they're going to look at me and go, oh, you're one of those. You're one of those Republicans that doesn't think for themselves, that doesn't make their own decisions. You're not enlightened like me. And I'm like, that's not the case at all, right? And so I just think that we need to pay attention to the overall story that we might buy into and allow to become our reasoning, when our reasoning should still go deeper than even that.
Yeah, it should be substantive. And you know, my reason for saying that wasn't to give Christians a complacency card, you know what I mean, or to give them an easy way out. It's just, I think if they step back and look, which is, again, it's not hard to see, it's very obvious in my view, you can come up with whatever that means within your own heart. Okay, and I was voting for the guy either way, but you know, my wife and I were talking about this just yesterday. It's like it's so plain, it's so easy to see that, you know, God is protecting him for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that you play that card and that's why you're voting for him, because then you sound like somebody on the left who says that Kamala brought joy to the world and that's why he's voting for her. So it is. I do equivocate that, bro. I really do agree with you. I still think you have to do everything we've been talking about here. I just, you know, all the trials that he's gone through, that they've tried. Again, that's another thing. If you can't be objective within your own mind and heart and look at the things that they've tried to get him on legally, like, you're just not paying attention and you're not being honest within yourself. You're just
all
not.
Part of the playbook.
It's all part of the playbook, man. They, you know, again, from a 50,000 foot view, you have to, like, you at some point you got to say, why do they not want him here, right? As simply as you can think about it, why do they not want him there? What are they so afraid? They have to be afraid of something. Somebody has to be afraid of something.
Yeah, they're afraid of the American people. They're afraid of the American spirit. They're afraid of freedom. That's what's represented there, and that's what they're afraid of. Look at the way. Don't just look at the way that they've treated Trump. Look at the way that they've treated RFK.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at that. It's another case. It's another evidence. Oh, he's crazy. No, I don't think so.
Listen to him. He's not crazy.
Pay attention. Pay attention.
Right. Yep. Right. So, Bobby, what do you think, man? As far as, I don't know, man. I guess let's talk about, like, why Christians don't vote. You seem to be real passionate about the fact that they don't. I think. Do you think it has to? Do you think it involves maybe what type of Christian they are within themselves, right? In other words, are you a checkbox Christian, right? I go to church every now and again. I go to Easter and Christmas, and I just do my thing in my life. Do I go to, or you that next level where you go to church every Sunday, you have a relationship with Christ, but let's keep politics out of the church. You know what I mean? Let's just separate those things. Or are you someone who is really making the effort to be like Christ and emulate him in your own life? Do you think that plays a role in any of this?
Yeah, I think as Christians, it's so hard because, to your point, I don't know if you have to have the status of saying you're a Christian versus how you walk it and talk it every day. But the fact that you have to label yourself as a Christian, and then even at that point say that I'm not. How do the 32 million become a stat? First of all, how does that even come? Like, I either vote, and I'm getting to a point here.
Yeah.
So the assumption is if you're a Republican, you're a Christian, right? Mm-hmm. Most Christians vote Republican unless, there's we can make an argument, but there's been a lot of arguments that the blacks they've voted for historical Democrats, but yet they're strong, devout Christians.
Right.
But we can make an argument from that. But the R seems to equal Christianity, and that's such a misnomer. It's such a horrible thing. But conservatives usually vote Christian, always.
So
And going back,
right?
Republican, yeah.
Right.
And so I think when you go back to what, and again, I like to talk through this because it's most people, most Christians, I can almost guarantee it because I didn't see these stats back in the day when, and I'm probably I'm the old geezer here on the whole group, so I remember the votes back in the Bush votes and the Clinton votes, and I remember all of those, right? Very clear. And so many evangelicals voted for Bush.
Mm-hmm.
Now we all know the truth, right?
Yeah.
Years later, we know the truth.
Yep.
And the problem is that we know who ran the CIA back in the Kennedy's era when they shot Kennedy. We know all that, and then all of a sudden they just started coming in and infiltrating and all that stuff. And that's not conspiracy; that's real. Like that's
fact, man.
That's fact. And so you think about, and maybe you make an argument that they're just the Christians finally kind of the veil opened up and they're like, I'm not voting for any way anymore. Maybe that's the reason. And I understand it to that if that's the argument you're going to make. If you're gonna make that, but here's the thing that I think is very important to understand. If you understand any part of the Bible, and if you say you're a Christian, and understand any part of the Bible, you've read Ezekiel, you've read Daniel, you've read Revelations, you've read the Gospels, you read what Jesus said, you know these things, right? And yet we are watching the World War III happen. The wars. I have an alert on my phone. It's called Red Alert. And every time a missile is targeted to Israel, my phone goes off. My phone goes off, has been going off in the last 3 weeks constantly. Okay? And so Israel is being attacked. And again, I'm going to circle back a little bit too. I'm going to play. I'm going to be a little. I'm going to be a little Trump. I'm going to get to a point there. But here's the thing. You mentioned that. Well, I don't want to get there yet. I'll hold. Well, this is what I was going to say. You have the president of Iran and Trump and Russia. Who are they voting for? Who did they cast their votes for? And that was Kamala, right? And why is that? So if you're a Christian, you're looking back and you have these world leaders who are going to want to take out Israel, and then of course take out America. They hate America. They hate everything that we stand for because of what Justin said is our freedom. The fact that we actually have a voice, and they want to suppress that voice. So Putin and both the president of Iran both have 100% said in factual they are voting for Miss Kamala. So that alone, Christians should, if you know the word and you know what's going to happen, then you need to save this country and vote for our country, not for Trump, just for our country.
Right. So let's, Justin, why do you think Christians don't vote? First of all, let's tackle that.
I think Bobby struck something there. I mean, I think there are a growing number of people who have chosen to step back and go, well, this is all evil and it's all a ploy anyway, so why be involved or why bother? I think there's also a desire to not be distracted, and people want to go, I don't want to be distracted from God and my relationship, so I'm not going to even think about politics. I'm just not going to participate. And I think that there is maybe some good intention there. I think there's also some laziness there. And some misunderstanding of the reality there, right. And I think the growing number of people in general. I just don't think it's just Christians. I mean, look at the record numbers of people that voted in our last election, according to the data. Record numbers. I mean, you look at the population of the United States of America, and it was still not everybody's going out and voting. Not everybody is getting involved. And you look at the data and you're like, there's a lot of people that don't care to vote. There's a lot of people that don't think
Yeah.
that their vote matters, and they've made up whatever reason in their mind that they're willing to do that. And this is why we're having the conversations that we're having today about some of the topics that we're talking about, because enough people have not paid attention for a lengthy period of time. And I did a podcast last November around voting statistics, and I highlighted in my county and in my state in particular, and it's similar across every state, how few people turn out for midterms and how few people turn out for the elections in between. It's staggering. I mean, in some cases 16% were some of the statistics I pulled out in different jurisdictions, different areas, and less. And you look at that and you go, wow. I mean, that's a location where really anybody could take that seat. Anybody could take those positions. Mm-hmm. And then you look at these locations that have been a certain way for a period of time, for a lengthy period of time, and you can watch history. You can watch history itself unfold. And so, why do Christians not vote? Man, I think there's a few reasons, and I think they're all horrible reasons at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that conviction or not, I don't know that. Perhaps you might have had a conviction 10 years ago, 12 years ago, whatever. Maybe your conviction needs to change. I mean, pay attention. That game plan's not working. I don't know when you chose to stop voting, whomever you are, wherever you're at. But that's not working. It's not solving the problem. And if you're one of these people who thinks that you're going to usher in the new millennium by not voting, well, I mean, you're kind of somebody who's sitting by watching a disaster happen in front of you and just grabbing the popcorn. And I don't know that how you can justify that. I don't know how you can justify watching a train wreck and not doing anything to help the people that need help. Yeah. So, I mean, good luck trying to convince any jury of that one. Oh, I could have done something to help. I could have done something to stop the problem or at least participate in the solution. But I just kind of didn't really feel like it. I just kind of, felt like watching was a better choice.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, the one thing I do know is that we as human beings will inevitably act in our self-interest all the time, okay? So what you're saying, bro, is even harder to swallow, because if you sit on the sidelines, at some point, some government hack is going to come and grab you by the collar and throw you on the field anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you are skip the field altogether and go straight to prison.
Right, or to the gulag. You know what I'm saying? It's like you don't, and there's a lot of dots to connect there. I know, but still, it's what I'm getting at is that I understand, bro. I have it too, man. I think all three of us wish that we could just live our lives, do what we do, have our families, go have fun, you know what I mean? And just enjoy life all the time. And I know we try to enjoy life as best we can. But unfortunately, you can't just live your life in blissful ignorance and think that everything's going to be okay. And the reason for that is because politics, whether you like it or not, whether you want to separate it from the church and your faith or not, political outcomes directly affect your life. So when you're sitting there at the kitchen table and you and your family, you're talking about your budget and you're talking about why you don't have money for this or that, and you say, man, I can't believe the taxes went up again, or fill in the blank of what happens and what is happening every month, mm-hmm. you have to be willing to understand that you helped usher that in by being complacent and doing nothing. Okay? Because that makes you ignorant of the financial system, that makes you ignorant of legalities, that makes you ignorant of all the things that are affecting your wallet, your pocketbook, your ability to live your life, and all of the above. Unfortunately, it's just the world we're in. You have to come to the realization that is where we are. That is life. God tells us in His Word, it is not going to be comfortable, and it's going to be less comfortable if you believe in Him. Okay? So I've had to come around for a long time to get used to that and be accepting of that, because I sought comfort for a very long time. And then I finally come to the realization that, man, this seeking comfort thing is really difficult. It's much easier to live my life if I just accept the freaking fact, because God tells me so, that life is going to be uncomfortable. Okay? And following Christ is going to be uncomfortable at times. And I just got to deal with that. And I deal with it because it's worth it. You know what I'm saying? So I think I understand you want to just live your life. I want to too, but you just can't. You can't sit on the sidelines. And why would you want to serve yourself and your family up to the wolves? Why? Without a fight. Why would you want to do that? Right? I mean, I think this, I actually applaud pastors who get up on the pulpit on Sundays and tell people how to vote and why. I actually applaud them, because it's the only source of information they're getting from somebody they actually trust. You know what I mean? And I think that, I don't know, bro. I think there's still so many of us, Bobby. You got to tell me if you agree with this or not, bro, because I think there's still so many of us in the faith that just don't want to deal with the confrontation. And they actually just view a regular conversation as confrontation. Having the conversation about politics is confrontational for some reasons. But I don't know, man. I don't recall Jesus being meek. I don't recall Jesus being non-confrontational. I don't recall Jesus not getting in people's faces. He did it with grace, he did it with love and everything else, but he still stepped up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't recall him. I just think that, correct me if I'm wrong, bro, but I think we really need to give ourselves permission to be a little confrontational, because it matters.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think Jesus exudes meekness, but I think meekness is definitely, you understand the word meekness, not you.
Maybe I didn't put the right word there, but
yeah, no, I got you. No, I'm not trying to correct you at all.
I got you.
Just for context, to your point, confrontation is something that most Christians, especially Christians who say they're Christian, do the checkbox stuff, do all the things, stay in their lane, stay in their square, their little box, and like to stay comfortable. But I got news for you, 32 million Christians. If you want to continue to stay comfortable in your little box, then 100%. Then
you better get out there and vote.
Exactly. Now, maybe that's God's plan, and again, I'm not. God's plan is God's plan. His will is His will. I'm just a small little voice. We're just three little voices in this that we want to. I don't care about politics. I think that's the thing. It's not about politics.
Right.
It's nothing to do with politics, because I absolutely hate politics. It actually drives me insane because it's so divisive. But so is religion, and so is Christianity, and so is everything else. It's very divisive. I think, though, if you are a Christian and if you're a Christian, you have morals. My dog almost took my headset off. Then you cannot. There's no way you can sleep at night, because it's meekness. You sitting down on the sidelines and just waiting, and for God to come save you and just come and take me away, Lord Jesus. It's not how that works, y'all. You have to be bold for Christ. You need to be unashamed. Yeah. You need to go up to somebody and say, is Jesus your Savior? I mean, just be unashamed. I've gone in some restaurants and I just screamed, I'm unashamed, because I don't care. And I'm not being disrespectful, and I understand that's probably a little bit too out for somebody, but that's my personality. I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to be unashamed of who I am by the gospel, and I'm going to be. The thing is though, when you don't vote, or if you vote for the other side, you got to understand something. God's people, Israel, is important right now. Israel is at the utmost most adversity they've had in centuries. Right now, it's going to happen. And so the reason why they want to kill Trump, because Trump's pro-Israel. He's pro-Israel, y'all. And so we need to be, as Christians, pro-Israel too.
That's right.
We need to be pro-Israel. Like, why aren't we? And the fact that you're not going to vote and you're going to bury your talents. What happened to the guy who buried his talents? Who just sat on the sidelines and just said, you know what? I'm going to be status quo. I'm going to just bury my talents. I'm not going to go out there and do nothing. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to be here in my little room with my little, air conditioning house and just do my thing, and I want to maybe pay my tithes, or maybe go make an offering here and there, or maybe make sure I hit my church on Sundays and do all the things. But I'm comfortable where I'm at. Get uncomfortable, Christians. It's time to get uncomfortable.
Right. We're called to do that, man. We are called to. I can't remember I can't remember where it is. Justin, you can probably help me with that. But we are called to be bold in our faith. We are called to confront evil. We are called to act. We are called to act. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this show is that all three of us here, we are acting. We are acting in faith in hopes that man, I don't even know. It's just, some people can listen to the last few minutes and this is not about the left versus right argument. If you guys have listened to any of the previous shows where I have these guys on, you should know it's very evident that we are not as shallow as to be left versus right and you got to pick a side type thing. And that's not Bobby was talking about. It's the sides are spiritual. The sides are good versus evil. And if you take an objective look within your heart at what both sides stand for, what both sides verbally speak of what they stand for, and what as much as you can get out of one side, which should tell you enough, then you cannot vote. You just can't vote one way. You can't vote a certain way. You have to, in good conscience, and I'm going to say you have to vote for Trump. I'm sorry. You can't, the excuse of, well, he's a bombastic hard ass from New York, that's not going to fly. That's not enough. That's not enough. I look at that and say, the guy was honest enough to tell you that he paid off politicians in New York to get things done. Whoever does that, you know what I'm saying? The guy was honest enough to tell you. And so I just think we need to give ourselves, again, permission to be confrontational. Give yourself permission to speak up. Give yourself, because most of the time, most of us, that's all we can do, Justin, right? We can speak. We aren't in office. We aren't part of BlackRock and can be puppet masters and do the evil things that they do. You know what I'm saying? We don't have that kind of power. But what we can do is speak, right? And you're really good at that. And so I guess, what are your thoughts on everything Bobby and I just said, man, as far as being confrontational, acting in faith, standing for Christ? Go on, man.
Well, you want my thoughts on everything?
All of it, bro.
Well, I mean,
I'm just kidding. Whatever you want to say, man.
I agree. There's my thoughts. No, we're in an interesting time. I'll put it there. But
yep.
we still want to look at this and expect that change is going to happen in the White House, and we don't want to do anything in our own house. I mean, if you are listening to this and you're listening to this from the beginning and not just hopping in for a clip here and there, then you've heard discussion about the issues. You've heard us be very pointed as to what we're voting for here and why this is an episode about the upcoming election here. This is an episode that comes from the Christian perspective, but also I think looks at this from a very black and white perspective as to the gravity of the situation, and calls to light several things. I'm gonna talk about Trump a little bit here because when he first ran, I didn't vote for him because all I knew really of him was I knew that he was successful, and that didn't bother me at all about voting for him or not. But ethically and morally, all I'd ever heard was the negative stuff that is thrown around, and the altercations here and there, and his persona, his TV persona, was all I had really ever had experience. And that's all most people have experience with Trump, realistically, is his TV persona. And you're fired, right? That's what people think of at first, or used to. Now we think about the guy who got shot and got up and said fight, fight, fight as he was getting pulled off stage by Secret Service. And then I've been thinking about this the last few months. I've been thinking about his son Barron. I've been thinking about Ivanka. I've been thinking about Donald Jr. And you look at them, and you look at just the level of maturity and the fact that we don't hear about the scandals with these kids. In fact, all we seem to hear about is how upstanding they are and how thoughtful they are. And Junior, I guess, he's got a bit of a different story. But then I look at that and I go, what's the difference between him and Barron? Well, age. also timing of life that Trump was involved in raising said kids. And you look at the story and you start looking at actually the life that this man has lived, and you got to take a step back and go, how much of what I'm buying into is actually true versus how much of it is hyperbole and blown out of proportion, and how much of it am I only seeing because he's in the public eye, and would this be the same, remove and replace the candidate with anybody else at this point in time? How many people have paid off different people in government entities to get something? That list is a long list, and nobody's dumb enough to believe that it isn't there. There are deals being made left and right. There's a deal being made right now for the future of this country, and the American people are faced with that deal. And if we don't show up, if we don't step up, then we are going to be part of making that deal. And that deal is going to be to choose to give up this nation for whatever else the powers that be want. And that's what we have been doing for years. And I do believe we're at a pinnacle moment where things will really start to change even more rapidly than they have been.
Yep.
And so to echo what you guys have said, we're not. If you've been living a comfortable life and you just want to be left alone as a Christian, and that's what you're calling yourself, then I would encourage you to read the Bible again. Open it up, because that's not only we're not just called to actually engage in the world around us, not be in it, but engage in the world around us, in the world not of it. Talk about that later, I suppose, as we wrap up. But we're guaranteed. You're guaranteed to have to contend with the world. It is not a calling. It is the reality. You as a Christian are taking up your sword. You're taking up your cross daily. That's what you're committing to. That's the commitment. I am going to take up my cross daily. I understand, I recognize that Jesus died for my sins. He lived a life. He took the punishment on. And I am professing that faith, and I'm willing to stake my case on that man. And I'm willing to go to the grave with him. You don't look at that story and go, oh, that was just a nice story about a guy who lived in history. Look at what happened to his closest followers in the years following his death and resurrection. People don't get brutalized and tortured and stick to that story. That's my Savior.
Right.
That's my Savior right there. And that commitment that I made when I said, I am with him. I believe in him. This is the truth. This is the way. Jesus is the truth and the way. I committed to that. John 15 is one of my favorite chapters in the whole Bible. I have a few favorite chapters. John 15 is one of my favorite because we break it up and we talk about this pretty picture of the vine and the vine dresser and pruning, and we go, oh, this is so great and so lovely. And then we start thinking about what being pruned is like, and if we were getting cut back, and then we start to play, oh, that might not actually feel all that great in reality, but what happens to the stalk, what happens to the plant? It flourishes, it grows because it's being taken care of, it's being tended to. And then we love to forget about that last half of the chapter where Jesus is telling the disciples, oh, hey, by the way, when the world hates you, keep in mind it hated me first.
Yep.
It hated me first, up to, and oh, hey, this is what's coming. And we love to just forget about some of these things and just go, oh, but love is just all about accepting. And it's just, no, it's not all about accepting. It's about truth, and it's about the reality. The opposite of love is selfishness. And if you're living and trying to build up a life around you and your comforts and your ease and coasting and complacency, then you are actively choosing selfishness. And that is the most hateful thing that you could do.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I got to tell you, you're right. Because, I think all three of us here, if it came down to it, we would die for our wives. We would die for our kids. We would die for Christ. But I don't think any of us, or any of you listening, would ever die for what you knew was a lie. Right? That's what Justin was saying. These people, the apostles, they died horrific deaths, many of them. For what? because they would not deny Christ as the Messiah. I mean,
it's funny you bring that up, because I'm literally finishing this book called Fox's Book of Martyrs by John Fox. And if you've never read that book, it is the history from the first martyr who in the Bible, Stephen, all the way through until today. And it depicts, I can tell you right now, I've read so many books, but this is the only book that I've read that details the horrendous acts that these guys went through, and watched their children, their families, because they would not denounce their Christ. And I'll tell you right now, I actually had to stop many times and take a breather. Like, I couldn't breathe as reading this. It is, if you haven't read it, I encourage every single Christian to pick up that book. And then after you read that book, I would want you to go like I did and go, knowing what they went through, every single person, and to this day still doing it, still dying. We're in this country. That's the thing. We're in this complacent country that this is so like, and it's gonna happen. And maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist that say maybe these Christians want it to happen faster. And maybe that's why they're not voting. Maybe they want Kamala to come in, so we can get in, I don't know, expedite where God's already we're gonna go through some things, because the Bible doesn't say if, He says when you go through, when. And so this book right here changed my whole perspective, because I've read the Bible, it's very descriptive, but when you see what the apostles really did and how they died, and even Peter was like, they said, we want you to be crucified, and Peter's like, I can't even think about being crucified the way Jesus did. I'd rather be crucified upside down. You know what I mean? And so that's the true love. That's the true love. Are you really a Christian? Would you really die for Him? That's the question. Like, I mean, really, like, just be thrown into an animal alive, and then have wolves and other animals eat that animal, and while you're in it. Like, I'm telling you, this book right here will make you really rethink Christianity. And these are the people these are my heroes. You know, Jesus obviously number one, but the people after that. And then of course you've got these eyewitnesses that seen it, that died it. Then you got the ones that haven't. They read about it and still believe, because the living Word of God is still live today, and it was live then. And think about it: the people who died and took all these things in the 300s, 400s AD, and all the through. They didn't have the Bible. They had scripts and all these things, but they didn't have what we have today. This tangible, beautiful, living Word that these people died for. So I think we got to get to a point where, listen, we're in the last days 100%, but we have what God has given us, a voice. He's given us the right to vote, to choose. And we are in, and what I believe is this is the last saving grace for Christianity. And we're going to have a revival. There's going to be a great awakening. And I pray that Christians step up, step out, and be bold for Christ. Vote not for Trump. Vote for save this country, to save Israel.
The way of life.
The way of life. Your children, guys. Like, our children are being infiltrated. Here's another stat that I think is important to know. There's been, since abortions became abortions, the stats, 2/3 of the United States wouldn't exist today. 2/3 of all the babies that have been killed. I mean, it's just heart-wrenching to think that. And then how they're changing the way. Listen, they want to control us. That's the enemy. The enemy is going to come and seek to steal, kill, and destroy. Christians, stand up. Go vote. Don't vote for a man. Vote for our country.
Right. I think it's important that our last section here, we talk again. Some people need real, visible, tangible things to see things. And so for those people, if you haven't had any conviction in your heart up to this point in the show, then let's just keep it transparent on the table, and let's talk about the visible differences. Okay? Let's talk about the visible differences in the quality of life under both sides the last two elections, right? So I'm going to ask you guys to help me with this because I may have missed some things, but let's talk about a few things. Okay, number one, we have records to look at, right? We do have a current Biden administration. We did have 4 years of Trump, so nobody can say that they don't know how essentially things would be. You can't say that. That's not an excuse anymore. Okay. And Kamala is just another Joe. She's just another puppet, hand chosen, as evidenced by the fact that the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, would not even let you people vote for the primary. Okay, so I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but I know you guys do. But has that World Health Organization agreement has Joe signed that agreement where we literally hand our sovereignty off to the World Health Organization and where it allows them to literally shut us down as a country for any quote unquote pandemic or virus or any other thing? Has that been signed yet, Justin? Do you know?
I don't know if it's actually been signed.
Okay. If it hasn't been already, I think it might have been already. And so just so you know, there are more details to it. Do your own research. But the long and short of it is that our president, your Democrat, Joe Biden president, that you voted for and that you are still justifying in your heart to vote for the side he's on, he literally just gave the leader of the World Health Organization, if I'm not, he may have, or it's almost going to be done, the power to tell the United States. Okay, the World Health Organization is not a state. The World Health Organization is not a governing body of the world. It's damn sure not a governing body of the United States. So that bridge for me is really, really difficult there. That doesn't make sense to me. But they gave them the power to literally dictate how we react and create states of emergency for the United States and abide by whatever lockdowns and everything else whenever they want at their discretion. Okay? Go do the research yourself. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to us. That's been in play. So let's talk about a huge difference there. The left said, yes, we'll gladly hand over the people of the people that we govern into the hands of other people to make decisions for us and how we can be. I mean, we went through COVID, guys. What are you thinking? Right? So they did that. Kamala would do it the same. Does anybody disagree that she would do that as well if it were her? Of course she would. All right? Whereas, in my opinion, unless you guys disagree, Trump would never allow that, as evidenced by his record in office. He would never do that. I know people say it all the time, but let's just talk about the obvious. Justin, is your grocery bill higher than what it used to be 4 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
By almost 300% in some cases.
Wow.
Yeah, we looked at an online grocery bill from 2019, and it was 300% higher for the same stuff today.
Wow, that's insane. Okay, so you're in Washington State, Bobby, you're in Texas, and I'm in Florida. So we are literally covering diagonally the whole country. Okay, groceries are much higher in cost. Okay, mortgage rates, Bobby, are they higher? You've been in mortgage for 20 years, 25 years.
Yep.
Much higher, harder to get a loan, right? Okay, so thus higher. Taxes are higher. Can anybody doubt that? Can anybody deny that?
No.
Okay. And I mean, these differences are nothing new, right? But what I'm trying to get you to see, and I'm probably not being very persuasive right now, but sometimes I think you have to simplify the choice. You do have to simplify the choice. You have to say, okay, well, what did these 4 years look like? How were they for me? And what have these last 4 years looked like for me? Right? Everything is higher in cost. Oh, well, that's just how it goes. No, it's not just how it goes. The people that you vote for in office have a direct effect on these things. Okay? So let's talk about geopolitical things, right? Bobby, you talked about Iran launching rockets into Israel. Okay? Do you think they would have ever had the balls to do that if they knew Trump was in office? No way. No way. I don't buy it that they would. Ukraine war still going on. I know it's not in the news every day, but it's still going on, guys. Right? We're still sending billions of your tax dollars over there. And again, stating the very much the obvious, there were no wars. Trump did not get us into any wars when he was in office. He kept the peace. You can spit out the CNN talking point all you want that he went and shook hands with Kim Jong-un. Yes. So what? He kept the peace. You know what I'm saying? There is a method to the madness, and there is a strategy involved, and you don't. What's the saying, Justin? It's like you get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar, right?
Yeah.
So, and keeping your enemies closer. So it's like, I don't buy that stuff. So what else, guys, did I miss as far as like helping people understand in very simplistic, visible terms the differences, and if nothing else, vote how to vote for your own self-interest in comparison to the two times?
Well, I think the only thing that maybe in this moment we missed, but we talked about it several times this episode, is on all of those things that you named, there's two views that are often portrayed, and the right one is neither in many cases. And we'll get so wrapped up in, oh, it's this way versus that way. Economics wise, tax cuts. Oh, Trump wants to just cut taxes for all of the rich and the wealthy.
Right.
Well, that's not true necessarily. But I'm also not opposed to tax cuts for those that are providing jobs for this nation. I'm not. Where does economics? Where does that money go? Well, anybody who has more capital to spend and invest in their business and their enterprise generally does, because that's what ultimately nets the biggest return. It's not. Oh, I got a tax break, I'm going to keep it much more for myself. No, I'm probably going to use that, and I'm going to add to the economy in that way. But that's just case in point. And then you look at Harris's unrealized capital gains tax that has been proposed. And this is just to touch on economics. I think this is one thing that we have not touched on as much. We didn't touch on the environmental issues as much today, because this wasn't necessarily like, oh, here's all of the issues that we're looking at.
Right.
But these are issues that are important to the people. So let's talk about economics for a second. Brad, you hit it. It's more expensive to live in this nation currently than it was a few years ago, despite all of the money that the government gave away. Right? We got all of these extra checks, and these extra checks that came, and if you look, Trump was very hesitant for any sort of checks like this, not because he didn't want to give money to the people, but because there was a whole lot of back and forth and a whole lot of noise around his last year in presidency, and the fact that we were apparently trying to impeach him every chance we got. So there's that. There are enough people that did not want him in office that from the moment he got into office, they were trying to impeach him, right? And so here we go. We've got a huge economic problem, and you want to vote for somebody who wants to tax unrealized capital gains by 25%. Right. And most people are like, oh, I don't know what that is at all. That'll only affect the people that make $100 million a year, right, according to the right. That'll only affect them. Read and think about what does that actually mean. What does that actually mean? People don't even think about it. People don't go, oh, I know what unrealized capital. That means that we as the people are going to suffer majorly in that, because if you're looking at your unrealized capital gains, for one, it sets a precedent. It will not just be for people at $100 million a year. We already have people trying to increase our capital gains taxes here in Washington State to the tune of anybody making over $50,000 a year will have to face capital gains taxes going up. That means when you sell your home and try and move into another home and upsize and get more space, you're going to lose. You're going to pay an extra tax. You're going to pay a higher tax on something as simple as that. So let's play that out for the whole nation. Unrealized capital gains. That means that when the government, when you have an opportunity, we'll say, and try and keep this simple and not prolong this episode, but so capital gains are something that's actually earned. Unrealized capital gains are theory. And we're going to invite taxes on theory, on a theoretical gain that you may or may not have, or you may or may not ever receive. Nobody that is going to be exposed to that, for one, is actually going to leave their money where it can be taxed by theory. Two, it gives government the opportunity to just take, literally, which we've already done with taxes to begin with. So now let's give them theoretical capabilities to just assume and take. And three, it will trickle down to every single person that pays any sort of tax. And those of us, will say, that are not in that camp currently of the $100 million or more club, as it keeps getting lumped into, you're going to suffer the consequences, just like we'll suffer the consequences of not being energy independent. There's people want to take the environmental approach here and say that Republicans don't care about the environment, and yet the common sense policy around the environment is energy independence. Why? So you can innovate, so you can make cleaner energy, so you can actually do something about the energy crisis that we have. Why? Because that will transpire and lead to cleaner operations altogether. Innovations. We'll poo-poo nuclear energy altogether. How many nuclear reactors have we developed in the last 45, 50 years? One. Nuclear energy is known. It's known to be the most efficient that we currently have. And it's not to say that it's the most efficient that we'll ever have, but it's the most efficient that we currently have. But we'll go, oh, nuclear, that just must mean nuclear bombs. No, that's not it. But we want to just accept those things and just run with them, and just because it's less thinking for us. And it's just, we will look at some of these issues and just make rash judgments because, oh, this side cares. The Democrats do not care about you. The current powers that be. I'm not saying Democrats as whole. If you identify as a Democrat, you're fine. I identify as an American, and when it comes down to it, the Democratic Party does not care about the people. Doesn't care about anybody. Blue collar, white collar, does not care. If you're not in the club, you're not part of it. If you're not in those meetings, you're not part of that club. You just aren't. They don't care. They don't care. They want to take everything that you have, remove every little piece of sovereignty that you currently maintain. They want to take it. Yep. They want to take it, and they want to control, and they want to own it. It's all about power.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about, I don't think people realize what unrealized gains means. Now, some people might, but some people, for those of you that don't, and correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, but that is the government saying we are allowed to take more money from you now on money that you are projected to earn later. So you haven't even gotten it in your bank account to be taxed.
Where's the evaluation coming from?
Right, that's the whole point.
Yes.
Right? So if you're a W-2 employee and you have a job like most people, just think about this. The government's coming in and saying, and I hope I'm not giving them any ideas, God forbid, but coming in and saying, okay, well, we're going to tax you more today for next month's paychecks. Yep. And then the next month for the next month's paychecks, and so on and so forth. So that is a feasible scenario, unfortunately. But here's the thing what people don't understand, man. Like this whole, Trump wants to, and Republicans want tax cuts for the rich argument is so cliched and so played out. It's been used so long. If you're falling for that still, God help you. If you're still falling for that, holy crap. Because let's be honest, okay? What you are forgetting to realize is that the rich, the wealthy, whether it's an individual or business owners or the mega corporations that you support, guys, they don't really pay taxes anyway right now. So there are no tax cuts for them that they don't already have, okay? They have the means to skate the tax code and skate the tax system, and they can do it legally, which is a whole other show. Yep. But they don't pay those taxes that you think they're getting tax cuts on anyway. So stop thinking that. Stop believing that. Stop falling for that played out argument. It's a lie. It's BS. It doesn't make sense. What I miss, Bobby?
Bro, I mean, you got to... Capitalism versus socialism is two different camps. One, capitalism is the people who want to work, and socialism is the one who want to take. It's that simple. And so if you can keep a population always with a handout, always wanting, always give me, then you have control. You need to look around your neighborhoods and seeing what's being built around your house, your housing market. There are these homes that are popping up everywhere. These little tiny homes that are popping up they're only for rent. You cannot buy. So you got to really look at the big picture, what's happening around our nation. There's homes that are being built all around here. They're going to make it to where you cannot ever afford to buy a home ever again, because if you do, then you have a little bit of say so. I mean, obviously the lenders still own you, but at the end of the day, the whole goal is for them to own you, the government to own you. So you've got two different camps. You've got the camp that is less government. You've got the camp that's more government. So if you don't want to think for yourself, then you know where to vote. And if you want to think for yourself and you want to have a say-so in your life, in your family's life, in your children's life, then there's your camp. It's that simple. Like, it's not, this is 1 + 1 = 2 type stuff, right? This is that simple.
How can anybody, like, forget your side. I don't care about your side.
Exactly.
I don't. How can anybody that's ever been to the DMV, especially in Washington State, here we're pretty good in Florida, I got to be honest. But how can anybody who's had the experience at the post office, the DMV, any other government entities, how can you look at that experience and say, man, how can anybody say they want more government? I can't rationalize that, even taking myself out of the sides argument. How can you say that?
Laziness.
That means
Justin said it earlier.
Okay.
Laziness.
Yeah. All right.
They don't want to work.
Touche.
They don't want to work. They want a handout. They want free, which we all know what free means. We know what free means, but
right.
At the end of the day, they think they're not paying for it. Education, student loans, all the things that it's so like it just doesn't make sense to any of us that has common sense. It's the ones that are lazy, that don't want to work. And guess what? I'll be honest with you. I still think that it's a very, and a holistic standpoint, it's maybe 30-40% of this country. But I think the majority of the country, hardworking, red Americans, just want to bleed for this country, want to worship the God that they love, really truly believe that there's still some hope left. And I just, again, to summarize and to finish up this podcast is Christians, get out there. Don't sit idle. Don't sit on your hands and watch this go by. Get out there and vote, guys. Yeah. We're gonna pray for you guys. I'm gonna be praying for our country. And even if they steal it, God is still in control. It doesn't matter. God is still in control. But you don't just sit and bury your talent.
Right.
Go out and vote.
No, you can't do that, man. You can't. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It's like you can't sit there and just allow control of your own life without having a say. You cannot just you can't sit by, man. That'd be like I mean, you choose everything else. You choose the contractor you let into your yard to mow your grass. You choose who you walk your dog. You choose fill in the blank of any product or service that you research that. You go and I do anyway. I mean, if I'm going to buy a piece of software, I want to know what it does. I want to know what it costs. I want to know all those things. Don't you want to know what your political leaders are going to do? What are they saying they're going to do? Do they have a record that you can rely on to prove what they're lying on? I mean, don't you want to do that? So, I don't know, guys. I just at the very least, I hope we've given people something to think about. Bobby, I don't know, was that your closing statement? Because if so, I'll just go to Justin and let him finish out. But
I mean, I think if people listen to this podcast, and I know there's a lot of information, it's 2 hours, and I get you're going to segment it, but the moral of the story is that we are given a God-given right to vote, and I think if you're a Christian, and that's been my heart, because I already know, there's a depraved mind out there. There is good and evil, and don't put your blinders on. Don't just sit back and just watch. Don't be a watchman and not say anything. Watchmen are for prophetic, just to speak through other people, speak through the Holy Spirit. But don't just sit there and do nothing. Please don't do nothing. Just do something. Vote. and pray and God then put it in God's hands. God's in control anyways, but listen, he listens to his people. He listens to prayers. He changes things.
I got to tell you something really quick on that, Justin, before we go to you. Two things. Number one, yes, I agree God's in control with it, as we all know, but at the same time, you can't fall into the God's in control complacency mode like we talked about earlier in the show. You can't do that. We do have to act. Number two, the hurricane that just came through Florida, up in Hurricane Milton, that I'm sure you guys heard about. They hype it up. They always hype them up. It was Category 4, then 5, then I think it came down, but it was still bad for some people, but not near as bad. Now, what's interesting, did you guys know, it's very interesting, that evidently there's obviously a lot of people praying for it to not be as bad and for us to be okay and everything else. But evidently, my wife told me this a little while ago, yesterday, that evidently as before it was coming on shore, or as it was coming on shore, it literally split in two and just dissipated like that. We barely got any rain here. We were supposed to get heavy rain on the outside. We got some wind that night and everything else, but that was absolutely unusual, unexpected, and obviously can only be the hand of God. You know what I'm saying? For it to split like that and just really dissipate in strength and everything else. Bro, God's here, man. God's looking out for us. God is, like, we just have to realize, we have to trust. But before you go vote, before you get off your butt and off the couch to actually go vote, if we've inspired you to do that, God willing we have, before you do, just take a minute, pray about it, let the Holy Spirit lead you on how to vote, okay? And be sincere in your heart when you do that, right? I know it's hard. That takes real work on the inside. If you're an all-in Kamala person and you're a Christian and you're sitting there, you're like, I can't vote for this butthole Donald Trump because he's that and because he's that. And I know people like that, bro. But I know it's really hard to look within yourself to really, really stop and actually make the effort to pray about it before you go vote. I know that's even hard, but do it, okay? If you believe in God, you believe in Christ, and you believe all those things, then you should do that, okay? If nothing else, to be led by Him, because His plan is better, His ways are better, if we trust in Him, right? So, Justin, close us out with your final words, bro, and take as long as you want.
Well, thank you. That's a dangerous invitation.
I understand. I know you, but it's all good.
Speaking of invitations, we're invited as Christians into this life that God's called us to, into communing with Him and into what He's called us to do. That's an invitation that is to be accepted and to be lived. That's an important aspect of Christian living that I think we've got to recognize, that there's no sidelines. There's no that's called being lukewarm, and you get spit out of that mouth right then and there. If you are thinking that the Bible is just a history book, you're sorely mistaken. It is not just a history book. Is there historical veracity in it? Absolutely, but it is not a history book. It is the living, breathing Word of God. And if you're interested in history and you're confused about the current climate of the United States of America, pick up a history book. They do still exist, and we are still allowed to read those. I would encourage you to take a look at, honestly, I think it's still available at the shelf or on the bookshelf at Costco, where so many people love to participate and give their dollars away to. There is a copy of the Constitution, along with the Federalist Papers and several other important documents from history for this nation, and it's all compiled into one book. It looks nice on your shelf, and it is a very interesting read. For those who do not understand the founding of this nation and the age of some of the men that came together to write the Declaration of Independence, of all things, and what we were dealing with at that point in time, and how infuriated we were as a people over a tea tax. How infuriating that wasn't, and you look at the percentage of the tax and where that comes from, and look at how much money we spend in taxes today. It is fascinating to watch somebody enter
criminal.
the work. It is criminal, but it's also fascinating to watch somebody who enters the workforce for the first time, get that paycheck for the first time, and start asking questions about all these letters that have deductions. and money that's disappearing from there. Who is this FICA and beyond? Now, that is a slight. That's not. I was going to say that's a slight point to the side there, but it's not. This is what we've been talking about for this whole episode. This nation is one that has done many great things over the history and the founding of this nation. And we're in a point today where we get to contend for that. We get to honor those that have come before us. And you look at the comparison of the United States of America to every other country in the world today and over history, and there is something different. And what is that? We are the leaders of freedom. And freedom matters. Freedom absolutely matters. We export the most missionaries to the world. It's time to start exporting missionaries to our neighborhoods, to our communities around us. It's time that we actively participate as Christians in the exportation of our faith across the street. That we actually take that into our communities and our workplaces. And we actually participate in the invitation. We accept that invitation to the life that God's called us to live. That is what is at stake. And come hell or high water, regardless of the way this election goes, as Christians, that is still the calling. That is still the expectation. That is still the invitation. And if you want to participate in this conversation further, you can check out Just in This World. It's the podcast that I currently host, and you can search down on any major platform currently. Would love to have you on. Quick plug there, as I know that Brad was probably going to embarrass me with that plug again, as like he did in the very beginning. But that's the type of conversation that we're having over there.
Yep. Amen, bro. Look, even an avowed communist wants their freedom to do what they want to do when they want to do it. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. So, all right, gentlemen. I want to thank you both for the time today. I really, really appreciate it. It is my hope that we gave people something to think about. Yeah, 2-hour shows, but that's what a podcast is. Long form, and God willing, we gave them some fat nuggets, if you will, to digest and to think about. And we can only hope that people are honest enough to search within themselves to do the right thing. And unfortunately, in my opinion, in this election, the right thing is voting for Trump, because you're literally voting for your way of life. If you like what you have, I know it's rough right now, but foundationally, we still have a lot of great things. We still are able to do a lot of things. We still have the freedom to do some things. And I think it's just, Justin and Bobby, I think it's our, like you both have said in numerous occasions, it is our duty to become more active. It is our duty to get more informed, to become more active, to become more involved, start at the local level, and really, really dig into. I know it's not sexy and I know it's not fun, but man, once you realize that it is about your way of life and your time, your labor, that's what your paycheck is, man. That's what your income is. You traded time and effort and work for that money. And when you realize how much of it goes, and then you start going into the rabbit hole of where it goes, holy smokes, that'll really piss you off. Mm-hmm. That might encourage you to get off your butt and do something. But I will digress for now.
Brad, before you close out, I just wanted to thank you for the invite on the show and your persistence at pulling this together. It's been an awesome conversation. Yes. It's been an honor also, and I think I can, Bobby would probably agree to this, to watch your faith, your conviction, and watch that grow in you. It's been a beautiful thing over the last few years, and I'm looking forward to continuing to see that grow in you, from your communication just to the obvious acceptance in your heart of living out your faith, and it's just been a beautiful thing. So again, thank you for the invite, and I'm just constantly in prayer for you and your show, and this has been a huge honor and a huge blessing.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that a lot, Matt. It means a lot coming from both you guys, and I obviously there's much growth still to happen, much growth to do, much growth to do. But I appreciate the kind words, and I'm trying. As often as I fail, I still, my heart is still to get closer to Christ. So thank you guys again. I appreciate the time very much, and Remember to always bless up, guys, and we're out.